Good morning, everyone. How are you? It's Megan from Hillcrest joining you for story time. Today, we're going to be reading two different books. We're going to read Llama Llama, Hoppity Hop, and then we're going to actually read a little excerpt from The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. We're going to read The Council of Munchkins from the Magical Stories Treasury. Let's go ahead and start with Llama Llama. So Llama Llama, hippity hop. Llama llama hop, llama llama jump. Llama llama red mus, thump thump thump. Llama llama touch, llama llama tap clap clap. Llama llama stretch, llama llama bow. Llama llama red pajama, big hug now. The end. Do you like llama llama stories? They're kind of fun to rhyme, huh? Let's go ahead and start with the Council with the Munchkins from The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. Dorothy sat up and noticed that the house was not moving, nor was it dark, for the bright sunshine came in at the window, flooding the little room. She sprang from her bed and, with Toto at her heels, ran and opened the door. The little girl gave a cry of amazement and looked about her, her eyes growing bigger and bigger at the wonderful sights she saw. The cyclone had set the house down very gently, for a cyclone. In the midst of a country of marvelous beauty, there were lovely patches of grass all about, with stately trees bearing rich and luscious fruits. Banks of gorgeous flowers were on every hand, and birds with rare and brilliant plumage sang and fluttered in the trees and bushes. A little way off was a small brook, rushing and sparkling along between green banks, and murmuring in every voice, very grateful to the little girl who had lived so long on the dry, gray prairies. While she stood looking eagerly at the strange and beautiful sights, she noticed coming towards her were a group of the queerest people she had ever seen. They were not as big as grown folk she had always been used to, but neither were they very small. In fact, they seemed to be about as tall as Dorothy, who was a well-grown child for her age, although they were, so far as looks go, many years older. 3 were men, and 1 a woman, and all were oddly dressed. They wore round hats that rose to a small point a foot above their heads, with little bells around the brims that tinkled sweetly as they moved. The hats of the men were blue, and the little woman's hat was white. She wore a white gown that hung in pleats from her shoulders. Over it were sprinkled little stars that glistened in the sun like diamonds. The men were dressed in blue, of the same shade as their hat, and wore well-polished. The men, Dorothy thought, were about as old as Uncle Henry, for 2 of them had beards, but the little woman was doubtless much older. Her face was covered in wrinkles, and her hair was nearly white, and she walked rather stiffly. When these people drew near the house, where Dorothy was standing in the doorway, they paused and whispered among themselves, as if afraid to come farther. But the little old woman walked up to Dorothy, made a low bow, and said in a sweet voice, "You are welcome, most noble sorceress, to the land of the Munchkins. We are so grateful to you, for you have killed the wicked witch of the East, and for setting our people free from bondage." Dorothy listened to this speech with wonder. What could the little woman possibly mean by calling her a sorceress, and by saying she had killed the wicked witch of the East? Dorothy was an innocent, harmless little girl who had been carried by a cyclone many miles from home, and she knew very well that she had never killed anything in her life. But the little woman evidently expected her to answer, so Dorothy said with hesitation, "You are very kind, but there must be some mistake. I have not killed anything." "Your house did, anyway," replied the old woman with a laugh, "and that is the same thing." There's the little council of Munchkins. She pointed to the corner of the house. "There are her 2 feet, still sticking out from under a block of wood." Dorothy looked and gave a little cry of fright. Indeed, just under the corner of the great beam of the house rested on, 2 feet were sticking out, shod in silver shoes with pointed toes. Oh dear!" cried Dorothy, clasping her hands together in great dismay. "The house must have fallen on her. Whatever shall we do?" "There is nothing to be done," said the little woman calmly. "But who was she?" said Dorothy. "She was the Wicked Witch of the East." "As I said," answered the woman, "she held all the Munchkins in bondage for many years, making them slave for her day and night. Now all are set free and are grateful to you for the favor." "Who are the Munchkins?" inquired Dorothy. "They are the people who live in this land of the East where the Wicked Witch ruled." "Are you a Munchkin?" said Dorothy. "No, but I am their friend, although I live in the land of the North. When they discovered that the Witch of the East was dead, the Munchkins sent a swift message to me, and I came at once. I am the Witch of the North." "Oh, gracious!" cried Dorothy. "Are you a real witch?" "Yes, indeed," answered the little woman. "But I am a good witch, and the people love me." Those shoes sticking out from under the house. "I am not as powerful as the Wicked Witch was who ruled here, or I should have set the people free myself." "But I thought all witches were wicked," said the girl, who was half frightened at facing a real witch. "Oh, no, that is a great mistake. There were only 4 witches in all in the land of Oz, and 2 of them, those who live in the North and the South, are good witches. I know this is true, for I am one of them myself, and cannot be mistaken. Those who dwell in the East and West were indeed wicked witches, but you have killed one of them. There is but one wicked witch in the land of Oz, the ones who live in the West." "But," said Dorothy, after a moment's thought, "Aunt Em told me that the witches were all dead, many years ago." "Who is Aunt Em?" inquired the old woman gently. "She is my aunt, and she lives in Kansas, where I am from." The Witch of the North seemed to think for a time, and with her head bowed and her eyes upon the ground. Then she looked and she said, "I do not know where Kansas is, for I have never heard of that country mentioned before. But tell me, is it a civilized country?" "Oh, yes," replied Dorothy. "Then that accounts for it. In civilized countries I believe there are no witches left, nor wizards, nor sorceresses, nor magicians. But you see, the land of Oz has never been civilized, for we were cut off from all the rest of the world. Therefore, we still have witches and wizards among us." "Who are the wizards?" asked Dorothy. "Oz himself is the great wizard," answered the witch, sinking her voice to a whisper. "He is more powerful than the rest of us together. He lives in the City of Emeralds." Dorothy was going to ask another question, but then the Munchkins, who had been standing silently by, gave a loud shout and pointed to the corner of the house where the Wicked Witch had been lying. "What is it?" asked the little woman, who looked and began to laugh. The feet of the dead witch had disappeared entirely, and nothing was left but the silver shoes. "She was so old," explained the Witch of the North, "that she dried up quickly in the sun. That is the end of her, but the silver shoes are yours, and you shall have them to wear." She reached down and picked up the shoes, and after shaking the dust out of them, handed them to Dorothy. "The Witch of the East was proud of those silver shoes," said one of the Munchkins. and there is some charm connected with them, but what it is, we never know. Dorothy carried the shoes into the house and placed them on the table. Then she came out again to the Munchkins and said, I am anxious to get back to my aunt and uncle, for I am sure that they will worry about me. Can you help me find my way? The Munchkins and the witch first looked at one another, then at Dorothy, and then they shook their heads. At the east, not far from here, said one, there is a great desert, and none could live to cross it. It is the same at the south, said another, for I have been there and seen it. The south is the country of the Quadlings. I am told, said the third man, it is the same at the west, and that country, where the Winkies live, is ruled by the wicked witch of the west, who would make you her slave if you tried to pass her way. North is my home, said the old lady, and at its edge is the same great desert that surrounds this land of Oz. I'm afraid, my dear, you will have to live with us. Dorothy began to sob at this, for she felt lonely among all these strange people. Her tears seemed to grieve the kind-hearted Munchkins. They immediately took out their handkerchiefs and began to weep also. As for the little old woman, she took off her cap and balanced the point on the end of her nose while she counted 1, 2, 3 in a solemn voice. At once the cap changed to a slate on which was written in big white chalk marks, Let Dorothy go to the City of Emeralds. The little old woman took the slate from her nose and, having read the words on it, asked, Is your name Dorothy, my dear? Yes, answered the child, looking up and drying her tears. Then perhaps you must go to the City of Emeralds. Perhaps Oz will help you. Where is this city? Asked Dorothy. It is exactly in the center of the country, and it is ruled by Oz, the great wizard I told you of. Is he a good man? Inquired the girl anxiously. He is a good wizard. Whether he is a man or not, I cannot tell, for I have never seen him. How must I get there? Asked Dorothy. You must walk. It is a long journey through a country that is sometimes pleasant and sometimes dark and terrible. However, I will use all the magic arts I know to keep you from harm. Won't you go with me? Pleaded the girl, who had begun to look upon the little old woman as her friend. I can't do that, she replied, but I will give you my kiss, and no one will dare injure a person who has been kissed by the Witch of the North. She came close to Dorothy and kissed her gently on the forehead. Where her lips touched, the girl felt a round, shining mark. The road to the City of Emeralds is paved with yellow brick, said the witch, so you cannot miss it. And when you get to Oz, do not be afraid of him, but tell your story and ask him to help. Goodbye, my dear. The Munchkins bowed low and wished her a pleasant journey. Then they walked away through the trees. The witch gave Dorothy a friendly nod, whirled around on her left heel 3 times, and disappeared, much to the surprise of Toto, who barked after her loudly when she had gone, but had been afraid to even growl while she stood by. But Dorothy, knowing her to be a witch, had expected her to disappear in just that way, and was not surprised in the least. There's the yellow brick road. The end. Have you ever read The Wizard of Oz? Have you seen the movie? What did you think of that? It's a little different than the movie, huh? Instead of red shoes, she had silver ones. Well, thank you for joining me today for story time. I hope you get out and enjoy the wonderful sunshine today, and we'll see you next time. Thank you. Bye.